Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I've got a little bit of gaming news for you. First off, the footage that you're looking at, probably a brief video, but the footage you're looking at is from Unity of Command 2, which is a turn-based war game that came out last year, and I covered on the channel quite extensively. Actually, one of the 6 or 7 videos that I have more than 100,000 views was my first look at this game. It's a really great war game that I enjoy. It does a lot of really interesting things. It's approachable and easy to play, and it also does, I think the main thing that it does that other war games don't do a good job of is it drives home the importance of supply and building logistical networks using railroads, roads, or other methods of supply in different ways to keep your offensive going in World War II. And Unity of Command 2, when it first came out last year, only looked at the Allied powers, really. Like, you could play individual scenarios as the Germans, but the game only had a campaign which looked at the American and British drive and the other Western allies drive, starting in the sort of tail end of the North Africa campaign, in through Sicily, Italy, and then Northern Europe, including the invasions of Normandy, but also in southern France. And so it had a pretty extensive collection of scenarios and other things that you could play as, but it was basically 1943 to 45 from the Western Allied perspective. Unity of Command 1, which came out several years before, looked at the Eastern Front. Didn't quite have all the same features and whatnot. It was a slightly more streamlined game, but it still had that same logistical focus, and it came out and focused on the Eastern Front, specifically in and around the Stalingrad campaign, is my understanding, although I didn't actually play that. I didn't know about Unity of Command until shortly before Unity of Command 2 came out. I know, I had heard of Unity of Command 1, and a lot of people considered it the best war game or best introductory level war game that had ever been made, and then Unity of Command 2 came out, and that's sort of where I jumped on board with the series. But Unity of Command 2, again, only had campaigns looking at the Western Allies, and so Unity of Command 2 is coming out with its first DLC pack. That's the news today. So the news today is that Unity of Command 2 Blitzkrieg is going to be coming out in, I believe, early November of this year, so a month and a half or so away, and it's going to be focusing on the Axis powers during the early part of the war. So it's going to be coming, the war, it'll cover from 1939, the invasion of Poland, through to 1941, with, I believe, the final mission of the campaign is going to be focusing on the invasion of Crete. So the key features here are the call-out 13-scenario historical campaign based on early war battles in Poland, Norway, Western Europe, and the Balkans. There will also be alternative history tracks of that campaign, so I'm assuming there will some element of branching elements of that campaign, which also allows you to do some what-ifs. So, for example, Operation Sea Lion, the German plan for the invasion of Britain. So, presumably, maybe if you're very successful in the French campaign and you're really quick, you can follow that alternate track. The game's going to include 50 new unit types, which they're going to have. The previous version of the game was really focused on late war, and so they're going to have 50 different unit types from every European nation, including Poland, France, Norway, Sweden, Greece, and more. I'm reading this off their key features tab in the news alert on Steam. New vehicle models for some of the different vehicles that are obviously new, like the Panzer IIIF, the Cruiser Mark III, A13, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to be adding forts. So in the previous iteration of the game in 1944-45, they didn't have forts. They had really heavily entrenched ground units, but they didn't have, like, standalone fort mechanics. And so they're going to be adding a new fort mechanic designed to simulate the challenges of attacking defensive lines. For example, specifically called out is the Maginot Line. There are also going to be new air support and theater assets to simulating the effectiveness of the Luftwaffe, precision bombing, and flying artillery. So the Unity of Command 2, when it first came out, it did have tactical airstrikes and things like that, but it sounds like they're going to be building that out to be a little bit more robust to sort of reflect the early war Blitzkrieg tactics for the air units and the airstrikes. Also, German headquarters will have options that will allow them to be more rapid in deployment and moving around. They'll have an advanced force pool, a comp group, oversupply, and other new capabilities to help simulate the rapid German movements in the early war period, as opposed to the more static defensive nature of the German HQs in the 43 through 45 scenarios. And apparently many new specialties, including an entirely new type, assault guns. So that should be interesting to see them including assault guns in the game. Quick call out, I first did see this update or this announcement over on wargamer.com. It's a website that focuses on strategy war games. And so they announced this earlier today. And then when I logged into Steam later today, I saw that it was also in sort of the news pop-up since I already own the game. So it's really interesting. The DLC is going to cost $9.99, so it's not going to be terribly expensive. That seems like a pretty reasonable price, and I'm pretty excited. I'm definitely going to cover it on the channel. I'm curious what all of you think, if that's something you're looking forward to, or if you saw the announcement, or what your thoughts are on that. I really enjoyed Unity of Command 2 when I played it. It's very well polished. I already said this, but I think it's definitely a game that's pretty easy to pick up and play, while at the same time being pretty challenging. I think the interesting part with the game is that it really does a good job when you're on the offensive, and so that's kind of why it made a German campaign for the late war period more difficult, I think. You know, the scenarios are really crafted to test your ability to maintain a logistical network as you advance, and so trying to break that up on the defensive could pose some interesting challenges, but it's not really the same game when you're playing on the defensive. So yeah, I'm really interested to see this. I think the early war Blitzkrieg period will fit their game model really well. I'm curious what comes next. Like, is it just going to be the one DLC pack? Are they going to do, you know, Operation Barbarossa and then go into the Russian invasion? The first game did focus on Stalingrad when it first came out, I believe. If we go ahead and I'll take 1 second here to pull up Unity of Command 1 page. I can't remember if they had a DLC that allowed you to play the early war attacks. Yeah, okay, so Unity of Command 1 originally was Unity of Command, and it had the Stalingrad campaign. Then they had a DLC for Black Turn, which was Operation Barbarossa. And then they also had a Red Turn, which was a Soviet counteroffensive. The Soviet Red Turn DLC focused on the late war period, so the Soviet drive against the Germans. So they've already covered all of Russia in Unity of Command 1. So it'll be interesting to see how far they go with this DLC. Obviously, the early war stuff hasn't been covered yet. Poland, France, Norway, the Balkans. But right after that, they go into the Soviet invasion. So if they're going to continue putting DLC out, it would be logical that they would bring the Unity of Command 2 system to the invasion of Russia, but we'll see if that's something they will do or not. They had 2 DLC packs for Unity of Command 1, 3 campaigns total when you include the initial campaign that came with the base game. This will be the first for Unity of Command 2, and I'm curious to see where they go with this. I mean, they have done some late war German scenarios as sort of free content updates, but I'm not sure it really makes a lot of sense to do a late war campaign from the German perspective. They didn't even try and do a late war campaign from the German perspective in Russia in Unity of Command 1. So who knows what they're thinking, but I guess we'll find out. In any event, I just wanted to let you guys know about this update in case you missed it, in case you hadn't seen it. If you haven't checked out Unity of Command 2 previously, I would highly recommend it. I'll link a playlist in the description for some videos that I've done on it. I think it's definitely a war game that's worth a look. But with that being said, that's all that I've got time for you here today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts below. And until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching. And until next time, I'm out.